I'm going to teach you what you can do with your diet and lifestyle to emulate GLP-1 receptor agonists like Ozempic as much as you possibly can. We know now that Ozempic kills your appetite. That's its main driving force and why it's so successful for so many people. This is the closest that you're going to get to something like a quick boost of GLP-1. Okay, so we're going to talk about that category. Then we'll get into the macronutrient category, like how you should allocate protein and what kinds of protein. This is simply how I eat. Then we're going to talk specific lifestyle things you can do to have a similar effect to Ozempic, GLP-1. And then finally, the last category is more mad scientist, early research stuff that might be really interesting. If you're new to the channel, please hit that subscribe button, and also please leave a comment for the algorithm. YouTube's weird. They just want people to talk and know that this video is getting talked about. So if you're getting something out of this channel, subscribe, but also drop a quick comment, even if it's just to say hello. So without further ado, let's just jump right in. Talking about GLP-1 inducing foods first, things that you can just add into your diet. Sacha Inchi, one of the most potent things that I've seen research on. And there was a study that was published in the journal Pharmaceuticals that first found that there's this thing called dipeptidylpeptidase. Okay, this is called DPP4. DPP4 breaks down GLP-1. So Ozempic is a GLP-1 receptor agonist. So it acts like GLP-1 within the body. GLP-1 curbs your appetite. Plain and simple. DPP4 breaks it down really fast, so it only lasts for a couple minutes. When you inhibit DPP4 with something like Sacha Inchi, you actually make it so GLP-1 lasts longer in your body, thereby having a longer effect in terms of appetite suppression. So if that, we look at a study that was published in the Journal of Science and Food and Agriculture that found that Sacha Inchi, the actual just meat and structure of it, is a massive DPP4 inhibitor. So if you take this or you consume these nuts or seeds, you're going to find major appetite suppression. The next one is one that I've talked about before, but it's very powerful. It's allulose. Allulose is a rare sugar that's in like dates and figs, but you can buy it separately and bake with it. Technically, it's not an artificial sweetener. It's just a rare kind of sugar, but it has no impact on glucose or insulin. It's extremely unique. Most of it is excreted. It is one of, if not the most potent initiator of GLP-1 that we can find in a natural form. It's nothing near what you're going to get with Ozempic, but it is very powerful from a natural perspective. So start baking with it, start adding it to coffee. My own anecdotal experience, allulose crushes my appetite for almost exactly 4 hours. I mean, it's just like, that seems like the benefit of it. And if you mix it with some fiber or something like that, it's even more potent. And I know people have their feelings about fiber. Okay, for some reason, it's a hot button issue for people, but soluble fiber specifically, there is a very large body of research here. There's a study in BMC endocrine disorders, took a look at, actually it was 19 randomized controlled trials. Psyllium has similar effects to intestinal alpha-glucosidase inhibitors, leading to increased levels of GLP-1. Basically, psyllium can be as potent as some interventions. Essentially what psyllium does is it slows down the food digestion so much that undigested particles go in the small intestine and they go down to the lower part of the small intestine, which is where the GLP-1 response would occur. So because undigested components, particularly of carbohydrates, are delayed because of psyllium, you're getting this huge release of GLP-1. So I'm not a fan of talking about fiber to make you poop. I'm talking more about fiber as like a tool, a tablespoon or 2 tablespoons of psyllium here and there for a massive GLP-1 response. And I notice a huge difference with it. Like psyllium is amazing. And when you combine psyllium or you combine any kind of soluble fiber with a protein, you end up with a very strong appetite suppression. We'll talk about protein here in a little bit because it's probably one of the most powerful macronutrients in combination with fiber. If you're looking for a little shortcut, one of the brands that I really like in terms of something that kind of gets this satiety is SunWarrior's Active Line Protein. They're using a pumpkin seed protein, which has some fiber in it to begin with, but then they're also adding some fibers, they're also adding enzymes, they're also adding probiotics into it. So it's really kind of a full spectrum protein powder that acts as quite a powerful appetite suppressant. Plus it tastes really good. I love their chocolate flavor. So that link down below, it's a 20% off discount link if you want to try SunWarrior. That's actually a 20% off discount link for anything on their site. It's a huge staple for me, 1 to 2 of those shakes per day, because it really helps me out. Plus I'm getting some protein in. So again, big thank you to SunWarrior. They've supported this channel for a while. They are a sponsor and your support helps them and me as well. So that link is in the top line of the description underneath this video. This next one is really good news for people that like coffee and green tea. There's a study published in Nutrients that looked at this specifically. What they found is that the green tea catechins, which are a compound in green tea, plus the chlorogenic acid in coffee, so even if it was decaf, combined had a miraculous effect on appetite suppression. They had subjects drink this for about 3 weeks versus placebo. What they found is that there was not only a major decrease in postprandial insulin, but there was a massive, and they said significant increase in GLP-1. So combining green tea and coffee, not necessarily in one mix, but just having maybe green tea in the morning and then a decaf after that, those combinations of catechins, polyphenols, chlorogenic acid, influence GLP-1. The first thing we've got to talk about from a macronutrient perspective is protein. If you've heard it before, then you're probably like, I don't need to listen to this, but let me share a wild study with you. This study was published in Obesity. It was eucaloric, meaning they ate the same amount of calories. One group ate a regular amount of protein, another group ate a high amount of protein. They fed them at all different kinds of meal frequency times, like different times of the day, different frequencies for a number of weeks. At all frequencies, no matter what, same calories, those that ate more protein ended up having significantly less appetite and ended up overall just eating less ad libitum. But what they found mechanistically was that there was a rapid, massive increase in PYY after protein consumption. PYY is similar to GLP-1, except what PYY does is PYY goes to the hypothalamus and triggers what's called neuropeptide Y, which signals at the brain level to not want to eat as much. So GLP-1 is almost more body, makes you just not feel hungry in the gut. Whereas PYY is more like the brain says, I'm not hungry, which therefore actually stimulates a subsequent increase in GLP-1. So PYY could arguably be stronger than GLP-1. So with that, it's a pretty potent thing. So very, very interesting. The more that we can just continually increase our protein intake, the better. But I want to kind of asterisk that because the protein does matter. And there's some interesting stuff now looking between whey protein and casein protein. There's a study published in Advances in Nutrition, found that whey protein destroyed appetite really fast in the short term, but casein protein destroyed appetite more long tail. So what happens is whey protein triggers an insulin spike, which, believe it or not, can actually make you less hungry. Okay, and because it absorbs so fast, you actually can get a rapid increase in PYY, which is going to make you feel less hungry. So if you're in like trouble, I need to eat something now, I'm starving, have a protein shake with whey, and it could kill that and abolish that if you know that you can get to food in another like 60, 120 minutes. If you need more time, something like cottage cheese, because the casein protein actually forms a gel, and this gel-like substance that it forms from the protein actually increases GLP-1 over time. So the best situation would be like having a whey protein shake along with cottage cheese or something like that. Now we need to get into the fats. What I would recommend that you do is possibly decrease some of the omega-6s, but overdoing the omega-6s could actually influence appetite. That's why we're seeing so many people talking about the seed oil thing. I don't fully subscribe to that, although I understand like the oxidation of oils can be problematic, but I'm more so interested in like how it affects regions of the brain and how it might make us want to eat more. So I'm not anti-omega-6s. I think they still are fine. I don't want to get into that too much. I strongly prefer omega-3s and I strongly prefer monounsaturated fats and healthier saturated fats than I do seed oils. They're low on my totem pole, but I'm not going to go so far as to bash them. But what I will say is that omega-3s have a unique effect when it comes down to appetite suppression. So fish oil increases adiponectin, but it also increases leptin. Now leptin is going to make you satiated, which would be good if you're healthy, but if you're leptin resistant, an increase in leptin could actually be problematic. But fish oil is such an anti-inflammatory that it actually can improve the leptin resistance as well. What am I saying with all this? Even if you're overweight or regular weight, fish oil would have a potent effect on appetite suppression. And adiponectin improves the insulin sensitivity, so you might have a long-term effect. We know from Dr. Rhonda Patrick that fish oil is really good for cardiovascular, for all kinds of things, but now we're seeing a metabolic play as well. So this study that was published in Nutrients took a look at people that had a regular breakfast and they gave them long-chain fats or they gave them medium-chain triglycerides. Those that had the medium-chain triglycerides ate significantly less and it abolished their appetite. Mechanistically, what's going on is those MCT oils are absorbing so fast, they're going into what's called the portal vein, going directly to the liver, and believe it or not, even if you're not following a ketogenic diet, they will produce ketones. And these ketones have a major survival effect to tell you that you're okay and you're not hungry. So what's happening is short-term MCT oil, you get it from coconut oil, but you can get straight MCT oil, will actually curb your appetite. So the whole coffee with butter and MCT may have some merit. I just don't think we should be blending butter into our coffee. But I do think a little bit of MCT oil in coffee could be really, really, really potent. This lifestyle stuff is important. Okay, so the first one, walking after meals, remarkably lowers glucose and will make it so you don't have the cravings later on. Try to commit, good old Stan efforting stuff. 10, 15-minute walks after you eat. But here's a really wild one. There was a study published in Obesity Facts, had subjects exposed to 3 weeks of morning light versus placebo. Okay, what they found is that the group that was exposed to light lost significantly more fat and had a significant reduction in appetite. Okay, well, what the heck's going on? Let's look at some mechanisms here. So with this, we look at a study published in the International Journal of Endocrinology. They exposed subjects to all spectrums of light, so either dim light, red light, blue light, or green light, okay, or placebo. What they found is that all spectrums of light first thing in the morning actually increased leptin, which would improve appetite. But particularly red light actually increased leptin significantly and significantly decreased ghrelin, the hunger hormone. Now, what was really wild, it was even more significant if the subjects were sleep deprived. So if they were running on 5 hours of sleep versus 8, it had an even more monumental increase in leptin and decrease in ghrelin. So you know when you wake up and you don't get good sleep, you're hungry? Simply getting good light in the morning can abolish this whole thing. That is unreal. Simple lifestyle hack. Eating slower is one of the easiest ways to have a better GLP-1 response. You're constantly feeding it, you're giving it less time for that DPP-4 enzyme to break it down. Now, another thing that you can add in, it's a little more lifestyle, but more supplementy, and use some caution with it, okay? It's called Yohimbine. Yohimbine is an alpha-2 adrenergic receptor agonist. So basically, it binds to the alpha-2 adrenergic receptor, which means that it will increase adrenaline or epinephrine. Now, when it does this, that's going to increase the amount of fat that's mobilized, and that controls your appetite because it sends a signal. It also increases the affinity for epinephrine to the actual cell. I would start really low and honestly use caution because it can be pretty heavy duty. Some people get a little bit of anxiousness with it, right? So you got to be careful. But I throw it out there because as far as an appetite suppressant like Yohimbine and Rauwolsine, powerful stuff. Now I want to move into the mad scientist category. So this is the world of things that maybe don't have tons and tons and tons of research yet, but promising and also good anecdotal evidence. The first one is having salt when you are hungry. Adding a pinch of salt to your water. If you're a veteran of this channel, then you know that adding some salt is a big thing that Thomas likes to do. Okay, what it can do is it can actually impact what are called NST neurons. Okay, so NST neurons actually register some of sweet and salty. Okay, so they'll respond to sugar and salt. So what we're seeing in some preliminary evidence is that sometimes when you have something salty, it satisfies the craving for something sweet. We actually seen this in larger data in the Journal of Clinical Hypertension, where people that actually consumed more salt would actually, in large data, consume less sweets. Doesn't mean that they were healthier or not, but it just means that, hey, like the amount of sugar they consumed was less. Probably because they were filling up with more salt. So we can maybe bypass this by adding some salt to our water, having some electrolytes, something like that, whenever you're hungry or particularly craving something sweet. Personally, and for probably safely hundreds of people that I've talked to, it works really well. Another one is capsaicin, having something spicy. This study was published in the journal Clinical Nutrition. It was 3 weeks of both positive energy balance, like a surplus, and negative energy balance. They gave them green tea, or they gave them capsaicin, or they gave them both. What they found is that the subjects that had green tea and capsaicin had a significant reduction in appetite. They also didn't just lose their appetite, they literally ate less. And it has to do with what's called the TRPV1 receptor. So the TRPV1, it's almost like a shock to the system so that we're not hungry. So this particularly has an impact on GLP-1 and PYY. So downstream, it makes us actually release these gut incretins that make us less hungry. Now, what's interesting is that this was even more profound in people that were in a deficit. So it controlled the appetite significantly if people were eating less. Add some Tabasco, add spicy stuff. You could literally add capsaicin to your green tea and it could be powerful. The last one that I want to mention is taking a probiotic or taking in some kefir or something, okay? There is a particular strain of bacteria that's being studied now called Akkermansia, and we're seeing really strong evidence in a relationship between Akkermansia and GLP-1 response. There's so much in the world of the microbiome that I don't want to get myself in trouble, but Akkermansia is so strongly linked with appetite suppression that it might be one you really look into. So look at a probiotic that might have Akkermansia in it, or start consuming kefir or fermented veggies or sauerkraut or kimchi. Now, as always, please keep it locked in here on my channel. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a comment for the algorithm. See you tomorrow.